Welcome to the Malta Chamber podcast. This is episode 4 in our special 6-part series in what is today's the biggest threat to businesses and public at large: scam, fraud, and cybersecurity. The Malta Chamber, together with BOV, have embarked on this series where we're uncovering the tactics that scammers use to infiltrate your company, your organization, irrespective of the size. Whether you're a leading established entrepreneur or just taking your first steps to become an entrepreneur, this series is designed to help you recognize the warning signs, see the red flags, and stop them before it's too late. In the previous 3 episodes, we examined cases involving scams, involving frauds, business email compromise, and romantic scams. These were activities that all happened in Malta. The fraud took place in Malta, affected a number of businesses in Malta, and today we're going to do the exact same thing, but with a special topic: cybersecurity. And with me today, I would like to welcome Mr. Carmel Vella, Head of Cybersecurity at BOV Group. Thank you, Carmel, for accepting this invitation. My first question is the basic, I would say, for the benefit of those who might have a lot of confusion within themselves. What does cybersecurity mean in today's digital world?
First of all, thank you for the invite, and very happy that cybersecurity is part of the agenda. I would say, if we look back or we look on how businesses works today, they rely mainly on IT systems. And hence, cybersecurity is about protecting the IT systems. Nowadays, most of the businesses, I would say, rely on IT. Even if it's a manufacturing company, if it's even a simple grocer, they rely on IT systems. Cybersecurity is about protecting the IT systems. It's about also protecting us. Why us? Because as we are going forward, we have digital identities. Previously we had ID cards, we still have them ID cards, but now in the digital space we have the digital identities. So cybersecurity is also about protecting these digital identities and the digital infrastructure that businesses rely on.
So it's not just facilitating your life only, but protecting you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is protecting the digital identities, as I said. It is about protecting the processes that businesses rely on. It's about protecting the whole IT infrastructure at large.
Let's personificate the cybersecurity itself. What is the role and how is it evolving within these organizations?
If we look back and go back a few years, I think cybersecurity was regarded mostly as a technical aspect of the business for those techies who maybe sit in a dark room over there somewhere in the company, and mostly a cost center, so an expense. I think nowadays it is changing.
We saw the day of light.
Yes, at least for cybersecurity, it is like that. And since IT, again, is part of the business, or the business itself relies on IT, cybersecurity is finding itself at the boardrooms, at C-suites, and there is more talk about cybersecurity, which means that cybersecurity is not only IT, or it's not IT actually, it is a business issue.
Okay. And have have you ever seen cyber threats changed over the years? And if yes, how did they change these attacks?
It has changed considerably. First and foremost, it changes with the IT landscape. So the technologies we introduce, all of the technologies that we introduce, there is an element of risk attached to them. A few years ago, or maybe a lot years ago, we never dreamt of having online shops. We never dreamt of having online banking. So every innovation brings a risk to it, and it has to be properly managed. And that is where cybersecurity comes in. So,
And these, what are today's organizations facing? What are the risks that they're facing, you believe?
I think the most predominant risks, if we look at all the industries, I think we can say that ransomware is probably the number one risk. So where attackers attack the organization, they encrypt the data and they ask for a ransomware for it. There is also supply chain risks. So maybe bigger organizations or even smaller rely on other IT companies to do their business. Nowadays, we're seeing that at least for maybe the big companies, they have a strong security postures. So what attackers are doing is that they are attacking their suppliers, and they infiltrate through the suppliers. We have seen even recently attacks on airports, for example, on major infrastructures, and this happened because the third parties were attacked. So the supply chain for example, airports, they were attacked. And finally, the organization gets attacked through its supply chain.
But one might ask you, but why should an attacker, because when you have scams, there is money involved. With cybersecurity, what's the end goal of the attacker?
It always boils down to money. So ransomware, for example, is a prime example. Why would you ransomware? Why does it happen? So it is majorly the money. So data is encrypted and they ask for a ransomware. If you don't have the protections in place on how to recover, then you have to rebuild everything. So ultimately, it boils down to money mainly. Then there are also geopolitical conflicts that we're facing. So it also, in a way, boils down to money, because if there is an organization which cannot operate because maybe the systems have been wiped out, that also means money for the organization, and hence that is why it's not an IT problem anymore, but it's a business problem.
Mm-hmm. You started, rightly so, by saying in the past it used to be like an extra cost and let's not give it a lot of importance. Nowadays, it's a completely different ball game, and you're right. During this trajectory, how did you see the cybersecurity landscape change?
It has changed. So in both ways.
You said attackers are changing tactics. That means the cybersecurity needs to change as well.
Exactly. So it's adoption and who will take advantage of the technology first, basically. Right now, for example, there is AI. So AI works in both ways. It can work in cyber defense to protect yourself, and it can also work, and it is being done used by attackers. So the threat landscape, what we call the threat landscape, is evolving according to the technology. Actors are always finding new ways on how to attack organizations. We've seen it also in fraud. First, maybe they start by a phone call, and then once we close off that hole, they find another one. So in cybersecurity, it's always upgrading and putting up the bar for them. But unfortunately, they will always try and find other means on how to do it.
What are the biggest challenges, if you had to zoom now on the organizations themselves, face when you build a cybersecurity program?
The major problem, I would say, is resources. So resources, both financial and human resources. And I think one thing leads to another. I would say that human resources are more of a problem, especially in Malta. We're a small country, but still we are prone to cyber attacks. No matter what, no matter how big we are or small we are still prone to these attacks. In my opinion, the human element, that is the biggest constraint that we have. I don't think it's only in Malta, you can see it abroad. And then it boils down to the supply that we have against the demand that there is.
When you say human in sense of qualifications or in the sense of numbers?
It is both. So qualifications, I think nowadays we're moving forward. So we have specialized courses at university and MCAST for cyber. There are also private universities. Now there is a lot of online opportunities that one can take to advance. But still, I think the demand is big. It's not only for Malta, it's a problem faced, I would say, worldwide. That's just to find the cybersecurity people. Finding a good cybersecurity staff, who is experienced, then it's even harder. Obviously, it's a market, so the prices for these resources tend to go up, which then becomes a financial problem also.
As you can appreciate, also because, I mean, you come from the banking sector as well, bureaucracy is the least favorite word in the business community. But regulations need to be in place, rightly so. Are these regulations which are at present helpful or harmful in defending your business against cyber attack?
Well, that's an issue of at the financial side, we say compliance. I think that compliance helps, but one has to keep in mind that being compliant does not mean that you are secure. So compliance will give you the basis. So in other words, yes, the regulation helps, because it gives you a baseline of how cybersecurity should be done. But being compliant alone does not mean that you are secure. We have seen in other organizations, big organizations, that I'm sure that they don't have constraints like we have in Malta, which have all the necessary compliance certificates, and they were still hacked. Which means that compliance alone is not enough. Security is compliance plus other things.
So it cannot be seen in isolation, that's what you're saying?
No, it cannot be seen in isolation, and I think regulations help to upper up the bar for security. At least we have, with the regulations, we have a security baseline on which we can further build.
Mm-hmm. And from your experience as a cybersecurity expert, what are the common mistakes that you always see coming from businesses and organizations in Malta?
I think most organizations, not only in Malta, tend still to have that feeling that if you invest in technology, you are secure. But security, as any other process, there is processes and people. Mm-hmm. So just by purchasing the technology alone, it will not help to be secure, because you have to take into consideration, especially the people, and also the processes that the organization have. It's useless to have, or not useless, but it will still help to have, you know, a state-of-the-art system that blocks the emails. But then you don't give awareness for your users, because someday, as we have said before, these attacks are being more targeted. And someday technology might fail. So then if the user, if you don't train the users, if you don't put in awareness, then that once that control fails, technology control fails, then you're open to the attacks. So technology, processes, and people.
And how often do you see this problem? Is it a common issue that that businesses are facing? Because ultimately, even as chamber, you know, we need to make our members aware to become more cybersecurity aware. You know, even though they have maybe, as you said, the best cybersecurity program, and then they don't have the resources or the people. So is this a very common thing?
Yes, we see it quite common that even the people rely on technology, and because technology or an email was received, for example, let's take an email as an example, then you click on it because there is the IT that is protecting, there is the technology that is protecting the emails. It's not always the case because sometimes these controls fails.
What advice would you do, for example, for people who are then either companies on a much smaller scale, because as you can appreciate, Malta doesn't have only very few ones. They are large companies, and we also have the sole traders, the consultants. Maybe those. What type of advice would you give them?
So first and foremost, I would say understand your business. So where is the money, where is the profit coming from? So look at the balance sheet, look at the profit and loss, and see where the profit is coming from. And those are the processes, if it's supported by technology, that you have to protect. So that would be the first thing. Know your business. Second, you have to ask yourself, so what would the attackers be interested in? So if you're a manufacturing company, what would they be interested in? Maybe they would put us out of production by deploying some kind of malware, and the manufacturing factory will stop. So you have to understand also what they would be interested in. Are they interested about the money? Are they interested about the data that we have? Normally, it's all about data. Once you understand your business, which hopefully you would know, but also understand the threat landscape, what we call the threat landscape, so why would they be interested in you? Then you have to see what controls you have. So that is a risk assessment. So what are the risks that we're facing? What controls do we have right now? From there, then you identify gaps. So what should we do? After having a list of what should be done, then there needs to be some prioritization of the investment that needs to be done. Obviously, that goes up to a roadmap, and you start implementing things, one thing following another, based obviously on the risk assessment that you would have done.
So, like in the past minutes, you gave advice to big companies. You just gave advice to small or sole traders or self-employed. Now you have also those who just started. And as you can appreciate, technology nowadays is almost, it's a basic need. So automatically when a person decides to open a company, tech comes in automatically without even thinking about it. What is now your advice when it comes to those who are just starting a company or a startup company?
So first and foremost, having a greenfield So just starting is an advantage because you're starting everything afresh. So over there, make sure that security is incorporated from the start. So even there, as with large companies or medium size, you have to ask yourself what hackers are after, what is their interest. So if I'm having a small company maybe with an online presence and I am accepting payments, then hackers would probably be going after any credit cards or any transactions that my customers would be doing. So map the business process and see at each entry point what hackers can do. And you start from there. Obviously, a risk-based approach. After all, it's not only protecting the organization, but also protecting the customers. After all, if we lose the trust of our customers, we will be out of business. Yeah. So we have to keep customers in mind, protect ourselves because we want to protect our customers.
Now you gave advice. Now, what should organizations do if, unfortunately, they have been attacked?
Yes, I would say unfortunately. All the regulations, actually, coming back to that, is most of them, they would have incorporating in them a set of controls that you need to do. And also, maybe it will be at the last chapters, also called incident response. So despite the efforts that you do, things can go wrong. So over there, you need to plan beforehand, especially for big organizations and also medium size. They should plan ahead. What can go wrong? And if something goes wrong, what should I do? And there should be plans done before, preferably. Because once, if it's unfortunate and you get hacked, then it will be like people bumping into each other. So it's very important that you make these incident response plans and also try them out. Because obviously you don't want to follow a plan and for the first time when an incident happens. So you have to rehearse these plans. If an incident happens at the end of the day, then the first step is to try and contain it as much as possible.
What does that mean?
So if it hits part of your organization, try to isolate only that part. You have to see whether you can continue function the other parts and still be and offer customers the service if it's possible. Sometimes it is not possible. So try and contain it, not make it larger. And one important thing is to be very transparent with all the stakeholders. I think there are, rather than I think a lot of companies get hacked on a daily basis. We see it on the news. The differentiator is how they react to that incident. If the organization is transparent to the stakeholders, whether internal and also the external, then I think you put peace of mind to the stakeholders that you're handling it. It's something, incidents nowadays are becoming more and more common. So it is important that you be very transparent with all the stakeholders.
So what you're saying in concrete terms is if I have a company and I got hacked, I'll be transparent and I publicly say I was hacked and we are taking all the necessary measures to mitigate this process.
Yes, right? You have to kind of admit that and not hide it. But also you have to show that you have it under control.
Yeah. You're on it.
So you're on it, you know maybe what happened, or you're investigating to see what happened. but it's very important to be clear. After the incident, I would say that one important aspect of the incident is to do a lessons learned. So what went wrong? Why did the incident happen? And what can we do next time for it not to happen again? Okay, so as it is an important step that maybe not a lot of organizations then do.
From your experience, okay, we said that data is stolen, maybe money indirectly, because obviously they go into your financial systems. First of all, these attackers are local attackers or foreign attackers from your experience during all these years? And my second question is the chances of obviously being brought to justice. What is it? Minimal?
I would say that mostly the attackers, especially those who target maybe larger organizations, they would be foreign. I do not exclude that they are local, but mostly they operate like any other business. So they have people who try to infiltrate and get a foothold into an organization, then they sell that foothold to an intermediary company, and then there is also, for example, ransomware as a service. So they copy our business concepts, but for malware. So these are organized crimes, even sometimes state-sponsored. So I would say that mostly they come from abroad. It doesn't mean that we're immune to these attacks. We have seen even with BOV in 2019 that being a small country, we still had attacks, and we are still having attacks in Malta. Maybe we don't know about them because they are not reported to the media, but I'm sure that they are happening. So being a small country or being a small organization does not make us immune. For your second part of the question, whether justice is being done, I would say yes, in a way. It is. There is Europol, for example, which are working very hard. I've seen a shift lately, even by FBI and also Europol, that previously they would name the group that tried to hack or do harm. Nowadays, they are also publishing faces. So it's not like virtual anymore, but they are also publishing faces of these organized crime leaders.
So they're identifying them?
They are identifying them, and they are also showing up the faces. So at least you can relate to a face. So yes, but it's a big process also as industries or as organizations. That is why we have to report. It's not because the regulators want us to report, but it also helps for these criminals to be brought to justice.
Mm-hmm. What is the most rewarding part of your role?
So I would say...
Picking attackers? No.
No. I would say the most rewarding is or one of the most rewarding nowadays is being involved by the business themselves. So business comes forward and ask questions about cybersecurity. Whereas a few years ago, as I told you before, we used to be like
in
a
call
center, stop blockers, always saying no for everything. That is changing, and it's very, it makes you, at least even for those working in cybersecurity, at least communicating with the business and the business seeing the value in cybersecurity, then that is rewarding. Also,
but Carmel, if you allow me to ask you on this point, why should a business person come to the head of cybersecurity of a bank? Why should he come? Why should he get advice? I mean, what is the gain there? Why it's important?
Because nowadays business is recognizing that having a secure system, so if you're giving a system to the clients, even for a bank, having it secure from the start, that almost nowadays is being even a business enabler. So who would want or who would go to an online site where it was hacked or it's being hacked? Would you give the credit card over there? So building trust with the business or building trust with the customer needs to be done also through cybersecurity.
Okay.
So that is why businesses ultimately come to cybersecurity. So how can you protect us? We're going to put this service online. How can you protect us? What are the risks? What have you seen from the past about?
Because they're using bank channels. That's why you're saying it.
Yes. So
Okay. And I stopped you for the second most rewarding thing that you had.
yes, I think the second, and it has been, I think, throughout the past is, although it is a challenge, the threat landscape is always changing. So there is no room for boredom. So you don't get bored and doing the same process over and over again. It is a challenge, but it is also rewarding. So you have to keep up to date. But on the other hand, it's rewarding for especially for technical people. It's rewarding that you always see new technology also.
Because as you said earlier, the landscape changes all
The
the time.
landscape is changing all the time.
Yeah. Someone who wants to start now working like you do and wants to achieve this role, what would be your advice to that person?
I would say be always curious. So curiosity is what drives you to learn more, to keep up with the landscape, to keep up with the technology. I would also say if you're already working or start working, and if you're started new, ask a lot. Because there are people over there who are knowledgeable. We cannot know everything. So ask, and you'll be mentored and coached from management. But always be curious. So curiosity is what leads to this learning, to these new technologies. And then obviously cybersecurity is a big domain. So then you can see what interests you more and maybe specialized in a specific area of cybersecurity.
Carmel Vella, Head of Cybersecurity at BOV Group, thank you very much for this interesting interview. I encourage you all, even those who are listening with us, to share it with their friends, with their respective employees as well, because the tips that were given during this podcast and the previous ones are not to be missed. Listeners wishing to contact us regarding such matters, they are free to do so by calling on the number 2131-2020, and I repeat, 2131-2020. All communication will be handled with respect for privacy. May I remind you as well that for those who have missed the previous 3 podcasts, they can find them all on the Malta Chamber website, Spotify, and also on social medias of BOV. Thank you very much, and tune in for the next one.